Hi, welcome to Barely Enough. I'm Ryan Mabey. This is
Nathan Perry.
We're back here in the Hey Hey Club at J. Rieger & Company, and today is a really special day. We're really excited to be able to do this episode on this day because it is what would have been the 67th birthday of someone really truly special to us, Dave Pickerell.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was his birthday until you said that. So
I know. Yeah, I wanted to surprise you.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I kind of thought you would remember his birthday. But
Thanks. Yeah, I'm sure you won't get mad. You'll be fine.
We do have his birthday like on. Don't we have it like right on the wall at the entrance to the distillery? It's right there, right?
I have no idea.
Oh, I don't know either.
You're just trying to make me feel bad.
But no, this would have been Dave's 67th birthday. So I mean, before we get into it, which we don't even really know what we're getting into, no script. No plan, no outline for today. We just wanted to have a conversation and tribute to someone who meant a lot to us, meant a lot to getting our business going, but also the entire world of American whiskey.
Yeah, craft whiskey in America, like the entire, like everybody kind of our size, so many people would have known him, would have tried to work with him. We were very lucky to actually get to partner with him, but he is kind of the Johnny Appleseed of American whiskey, if you will, because he did a lot of kind of like a lot of hands.
I like that. I actually usually say Godfather of the modern like American craft whiskey.
That's fair.
movement.
I mean, you can see
But
it.
Johnny Appleseed, I like that.
Yeah. Well, so before we actually start,
Yeah. Oh yeah, we should do this. So
to Dave.
to Dave. Cheers. That was a whiskey that he was a part of, our Kansas City whiskey.
Yeah.
Which we'll probably get into some of that story, like some of how that got formulated. But maybe also we can talk about what else makes today special for us, anyway. Huh. What's this?
That's our rye whiskey. So this is a rye whiskey that we just actually put labels on today. But this is going to get released in a couple days here in Kansas City on 816 Day, which if you're from Kansas City, that makes a lot of sense because we're area code 816. So we're really excited about this. But this is, you think about rye whiskey, and especially like a whiskey like this, Dave was the guy to go ask questions to about, and everybody would want to go and learn how to make it. When they recommissioned George Washington's still at Mount Vernon,
Yeah, it was at Mount Vernon, yeah.
the guy they went to try to figure out how to do it and how to make the recipe the way it would and make it work on this old still was Dave Pickerell. And so he is the expert, or was the expert with rye whiskey. And so he kind of taught us the tricks of how to make rye whiskey. And now, this is our third iteration of our Bottled in Bond Rye, so this is 6 years old. And I used to get a lot more emotional thinking about it, the fact that he never got a chance to taste it. But I know he would have been proud. On some of these whiskeys right now, actually, one of his last trips to Kansas City, I kind of had a nervous moment where I thought, what if he taught me everything and then I've just forgotten it and everything I've been making is actually terrible? It's one of those really nice things to wake up at like 2 in the morning and like, what if for years I've been screwing everything up? And so the next day, I think he was coming to town and I had him just taste some new make. I was like, Dave, I just need you to taste some new make. And I remember it was in a glass very much like this, just got a little bit right off the still. He kind of nosed it, tasted it, and he just said, that's professional. And for me, that was like the highest, I mean, that's the compliment. A lot of people would be like, oh, it's great. But like to have certain people say certain things, that for me was a huge thing. That was kind of his nod of appeal, I guess. Yeah.
Approval.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless, I think what's really amazing about it and really special. I mean, we talk about Dave like, family, because he was family. He was an integral part to our restarting J. Rieger & Company, formulating the Kansas City whiskey, building the distillery, designing the stills. And you mentioned Mount Vernon, which is a really cool thing. I almost forgot about. But not only did he bring back like that George Washington whiskey recipe, but he actually designed the still.
Yeah.
Like the stills that they use there to make that whiskey were, designed per Dave's guidance and direction, to replicate what probably would have been an exact replica or a very close replica to what George Washington was using back then. And I was just going to point that out.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. He designed these stills and had them built just like he designed ours. I mean, our still, our 750-gallon Vendome, is custom designed by him. And it took probably a year and a half to manufacture and make, but it's unique and proprietary to us, but it was designed by Dave Pickerell. And this little icon you see on every bottle of Rieger, it's really small down here in the rye, but it's a little diamond with a tiny little still in there. There's a little pot still with a little onion top. He had it tattooed on him, on his arm.
Yeah.
And it was kind of his signature, and it goes on every bottle, not just every bottle of rye that we make, but it goes on all of our products. It's a part of our signature.
Yeah, we have, on a lot of our labels, we have a lot of really old, cool stuff from, prior to Prohibition, but this is something that we added in, and for us, it's probably just as important as, the Oh So Good ribbon and the shield. It's just having that, because you're talking about Dave, and how integral he was into starting the brand back up. Do you think it would have actually happened as the way it's happened now without Dave?
So I can look at that a couple of different ways. So I think that one way or another, J. Rieger and Company would have come back.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
I'm gonna have to
It's live.
Dave's fucking with me right now from beyond.
Watch the language. My kids are watching.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. No, what I was saying was that it's perfect.
It happens from time to time.
That's a really interesting question because I talk about this a lot, and I talk about how without Dave Pickerell, we probably wouldn't be here having this conversation today. That's how important he was to resurrecting J. Rieger and Company. I was talking to Andy Rieger I met Andy in late 2010, right around Christmas 2010.
That's crazy.
When we opened the Rieger restaurant. And then about a year went by and we didn't talk at all. I reached back out to him around Christmas in 2011. That's when we first started to really kind of talk about doing it. He was, naturally and understandably hesitant, being an industry he wasn't familiar with and, all these things. And I'll never forget, one day, and I don't remember if it was, I think it was over the phone, we were just having a conversation and he hadn't really committed yet and said, all right, I get that you're, this accomplished, bartender and restaurateur and all these things, but how do you know how to make whiskey? And, I'm brutally honest. I'm like, I don't know how to make whiskey. But I know people who do.
Yeah. And
Dave was the first name that I said. I had already met with Dave and talked to him. He knew about the idea for resurrecting J. Rieger and Company. And he said to me, he's like, hey, when you get ready, let me know. I'd love to be a part of it, And so that was when I told Andy, I said, I don't know how to make whiskey, but I got, this guy, Dave Pickerell, who used to be the Master Distiller at Maker's Mark. And then he left Maker's Mark and started Whistle Pig, and now he's doing a bunch of consulting. And Andy, I think he went silent for a few minutes, and he was like, the Master Distiller from Maker's Mark and the guy that started Whistle Pig? I'm like, well, yeah, he's a friend. But to me that sounded, it was maybe I took it for granted, being in the industry as long as I had been as a bartender and having so many opportunities to meet people like that and get to know them, it didn't necessarily stand out to me as extraordinary, but it was certainly an opportunity. And I'll tell you, after that conversation with Andy, the next thing was the three of us got on a call. We probably talked for an hour, and at the end of it all, Andy was in. Mm-hmm. It was, if there was one, I think, final moment that convinced Andy to say, yeah, let's do this, I think it was talking to Dave and having, the reassurance that he's got someone on board that knows how to build a distillery.
Yeah.
Knows how to make whiskey. So, he was pretty integral.
He was I think about the first time I met Dave would have been in the interview process.
Yeah.
And you talk about having somebody like that reassuring people about jumping onto this kind of crazy project at the time is really none of this. We're sitting in, I still am amazed that this exists, how it does right now. But I'm thinking about, it was in the fall. It had been October of 2014, probably. Mm-hmm. And it was a group interview. was not actually supposed to be a group interview, but it was an interview where I think the last 5 candidates for my job were going to come down and meet and talk with Dave and do a little proofing and kind of do some stuff. But everyone that was there prior to me was still there when my slot came up because no one wanted to leave, and everyone wanted to keep talking with Dave because he had that kind of effect on people. And I think anybody that ever got to meet him, and I think like that's a thing. Like we got to work with him a lot more, and maybe I take that for granted a little bit, just because he was like, it's Dave, but and less of the celebrity and more of just like it's Dave.
Yeah.
But he had such an endearing personality. It's weird to like have this be so engaging, but also I'm trying to think of the best way to describe the larger than lifeness of Dave and some of his stories. But then the fact that he was probably one of the smartest people that I've ever met. And so I got to like kind of first experience it then, and then I thought, okay, now I really want to be a part of this project. I want to do this because I like the way he talks about things. I like just the way he just talked about product quality and just all the things that were paramount to him. The things that I really wanted, and I felt like were super important. But yeah, that was a fun interview process.
That was fun. I remember that pretty clearly. I mean, I'm sure my experience on that day was a little different than yours. You know, but the interview process that Andy and I started, we started with probably 30, 35 like people that applied that, you know, maybe had a realistic chance, and we narrowed it down to I think 12, and then went back and did like another series of interviews. From there we narrowed it down to 5, and that last stage of that interview process was spending the day with Pick.
Yeah.
And I don't think we never intended for all 5 of the group to be together with Pick the whole day. In fact, it was supposed to be kind of staggered, like, you know, each one would spend an hour or 2 with him, you know, here at the distillery in our warehouse, you know, before we had all this. But he was, I think it was really his influence that he was so engaging and so entertaining that nobody wanted to leave, and everybody, he always brought people together.
Oh yeah.
You know, he was so good about bringing people together, being just very comfortable and natural and having a good time. And I just thought, you know, let's just let him do his thing, and he did his thing.
Yeah. One thing about that, thinking about that, was I had actually recommended the job to, it was a coworker that I had at my old job. Her brother was also applying, and he was one of the top 5. And so I remember walking in. I hadn't told anybody I was looking for. I was potentially doing this. And so I walk in, and I remember just having to like, "Oh, hi, Brad." So now it's kind of the cat's out of the bag. But like, everyone wanted to just be around. And that entire day was awesome. Yeah, that was blending up the first batch of Kansas City whiskey.
Yeah, after we had like finally
but like
realized,
that was the first like getting ready to bottle. That was the whole thing. That was what got
Absolutely.
released on
October 30th, 2014.
Yeah, so sometime in October. Yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but that was such a cool time.
So we got a question from our audience. Said, what was Dave's first impression of you? I can't really speak to what his first impression of me was. My guess is, like most people like that, like I've always been pretty outgoing and bold with approaching people that are more accomplished in this industry than I was really hungry. You know, I would have met Dave right around probably 2008, 2009 is my guess. And I think if I remember correctly, he was still with Maker's Mark, and I think it was at the Manhattan Cocktail Classic in New York was the first place that I met him, and I approached him at the Maker's Mark booth, and so he probably thought, you know, I was just another like really hungry, ambitious bartender, you know, or aspiring bar owner. But I don't really know. But I'm wondering what you think about what his first impression of you was.
Well, that's the thing. I don't actually know. I wonder if like he gave you guys feedback.
Yeah. After
the interview. I had to have been positive because I kept going on with the interview, and I got the job.
Well, so after that day where you guys, the 5 of you, spent all day here with him, there was a clear top 2, and you weren't one of them. No, I'm kidding.
They didn't accept.
We fought back. We're like, no, we like Nate. No, there was a really clear top 2, and you were one of them. And he was having a hard time, like, and you guys had very different skill sets, you know. But I think that your background at Boulevard, your background, you know, with chemistry and working in the lab, definitely played into your advantage. But I remember him just talking about your knowledge and understanding and comprehension, how quick you were to like pick up everything. And so he felt really, really, really confident in your ability to jump right in and run this thing.
That made it like, I love, like, well, I miss a lot of things, but like those conversations where it's like I'll have questions, like heck, right now we're the distillery, we're always troubleshooting something, and the amount of times I would just be able to like call or talk and be like, this is happening, and kind of we just troubleshoot it together, even if we couldn't figure it completely out, but the ability to just have the conversation, be like, oh this, and that was really nice to be able to talk to him. Again, we do have different backgrounds. I have a biology degree. He came from a chemical engineering background, and kind of coming together. But being able to talk with him, yeah. I guess I probably don't still fully understand the gravity of getting to work with him as closely as we did.
It's a rare opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I think any this longer than you have,
Yeah.
and has knowledge to share, and I think that probably never goes away throughout your life. I think you'll have many mentors, but the opportunity to work with someone like that, like who is widely considered the absolute best in the world, you know, has got to be pretty amazing.
I like to say, we've done it, I mean, on the whiskey side we had Dave, on the gin side we had Tom.
Yeah.
But getting a chance to find the smartest person in the room and see what you can learn from them.
Yeah.
And then in the hope that someday you happen to be one of the smartest people in the room, but never actually think you're the smartest person in the room.
Right.
That's the danger.
It is.
And so I think the older I get, the more I realize I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, that makes sense? Like,
makes perfect
yeah,
sense.
but like you're constantly trying to figure out what you're doing. And so I wish I had, you know, a Dave around on some things to do it, but I still had, like,
I can't remember the exact phrasing of the saying. I think it's like an old Stoic saying where, like, the larger you build your island of knowledge, the broader the shoreline of what you don't know is.
That's pretty, yeah.
But something to that effect.
Uh-huh.
But you're right. I think we're all kind of in that same place. You know,
Yeah.
when you go on down that path and you don't know exactly where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But no, he was really, really special and yeah, pretty awesome that you got to learn from him. How about with like with this rye? So, you know, this is the third release of our bottled and bond rye. One thing that I will say, I mean, I remember the conversations in the very beginning about rye. I mean, he was mostly known for rye, for launch after Maker's Mark anyway. You know, he launched Whistle Pig, and then, you know, kind of became known as you know, someone who was really, really tuned into rye distillation, which, you know, at that time in the early 2010s, I mean, rye was still a really small category.
Yeah.
You know, even 10 years before that, it was almost completely gone. Like American rye whiskey was almost extinct in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, and made a comeback. But now, where it is today, I think, you know, Pick had a lot to do with that. But I don't think we didn't plan on in the very beginning saying that this was going to be a bottled and bond product. We kind of determined that a little bit later.
Yeah, I don't think that was established. I think one thing we wanted to do was make it unapologetically rye. And so that's why on our rye, it's 96% rye and then 4% malted barley. And I like our little, when we chose 96 and 4, it was specifically just because if you make it 95.5, there's another large manufacturer that does that, and there's lots of brands out there that do it. There's nothing wrong with them. They're actually some beautiful
Really
whiskeys.
good ryes.
But if we made it like that, there would always be the questions like, did you actually distill it there? And I was like, yeah, we did. So when we also could have gone 100% rye. I know Dave works with some people and they did 100% rye, but we like the addition of that malted barley in there just to kind of help out. It does help in the mash. The rye is it's a pain to work with as a grain. Get really, really gummy in the mash, and having his expertise in how to run the mash and how to do that. And we even kind of modified it, what he taught me, and then we tried a couple things. Now we do it a little differently than what we initially started with him. But I remember when I first started, I wanted to change it. I was like, hey, I want to try this. He's like, you can try it. And but didn't know if it was going to like make a mess or something. I was like, well, we'll clean it up if it makes a mess. And it worked. He's like, that's cool. And I think he actually, that was a really cool experience to do something, try a different method, and have him be like, I don't know, it could screw up. And I was like, yeah, I think it could too. But then when it didn't, we're like, oh, awesome, we can kind of run with this. And it sort of helped out our process, streamlined it a little bit. It didn't affect the final product. And so it was a perfect way to do something. But that was that type of experience, like getting a chance to, I know this is the way you told me how to do it. What if we do it this way? And him just saying, I don't know, try it, see what happens.
Love it.
Yeah, and he's like, he was going to learn from it. He wasn't going to have to clean it up. I was, and so.
So talking about cleaning it up, I mean, I've heard lots of stories
boiling
about
up.
Other distilleries and how finicky rye is, and you have those foaming issues and flowing over. Did we ever have anything like that ever happen here early on?
Yes, we've made lots of messes, especially with fermentations and things like that. In rye, it does foam up a little bit more. Even just it's got a lot of surface tension, and it doesn't have like the fat content you'll get with the corn. And so we're doing like a bourbon, something like that. It's not as bad. And so if the times we'll have a fermenter overflow, and we've done it I don't know how many times on our new system. Still, it just happens every once in a while. But like even in the mash, like the rye can tend to bubble. If you get a little too hot, it'll get a little excited and want to get out of there.
We had another question from our audience asking, since Dave never got a chance to try it, I mean, how did we know that it was going to turn out all right?
I would say that comes back like there was a lot of hope, but also it was having him taste the new make and having him been in whiskey for so long, him getting a chance to taste it, kind of an understanding of what's going to happen in the barrel, made me feel a lot more confident. I was still so nervous with all this coming out. I still have what if from that point on everything has changed and now I can't taste something, or I'm missing these things. But I think it's healthy to have a little bit of a doubt. I probably every once in a while have a little too much, but I think that his confidence in honestly tasting the new make, he helped us pick the type of barrels we use, how long the oak is seasoned before we make our barrels, all that stuff that came from him, and he knew kind of what was going to be happening there. So his tasting the new make, knowing like this tastes good, made me feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would add to that. We never, from the beginning of this distillery, building this whole thing, we've never necessarily been like flying by the seat of our pants. We've always thought long term from the very beginning, whether it's about resurrecting the legacy of J. Rieger and Company, or the time and patience required in making really good whiskey. We've always thought down the road.
Yeah.
And so if we were just making something in the very beginning that we knew we had to like speed up the aging and like bottle young and all that, then I think there would have been a lot of chaos in the ongoing evolution of what we have in our bottle. But that's never been the case, because we knew what we wanted from the beginning. We knew we were going to make legit straight bourbon, legit rye. We're going to use nothing but 53-gallon barrels. We knew about the aging process. You had his guidance in the milling and the fermentation and the distillation and all that. So it kind of takes some of the risk out when you're already looking from the very beginning. When you're making something that is going to take 5 or 6 years, and you're planning for that.
Yeah, and also I was thinking about like, if we wanted this to hire him, we could have just hired him and said, hey, we want to make something. We're going to make it 6 months old. Can you help us out, make it as close to whiskey as, or a good whiskey as you can possibly do it? He probably had some tips. But he definitely wouldn't want to partner with the company. But I think getting to see what the vision that you had and Andy had to kind of bring the company back got him excited enough to be like, all right, I actually want to be a part of this. And that was such a cool thing.
He was a partner. He wasn't a hired gun. Like we gave him equity in the company. He was a partner. He was a part of our family from the very beginning. And I think that's really special. It means a lot.
You got any appropriate Dave stories?
I have a lot of inappropriate stories. But I have something else here that I want to share.
Okay.
That you probably haven't seen in a long time. I actually have this at home. This is in the very beginning when Andy and I started this project and we first got Dave signed on. We knew we'd have to source whiskey, right? And we didn't know, we weren't talking rye in the beginning. We were talking about what is the first J. Rieger whiskey going to be.
Yeah.
We didn't even know it was going to be Kansas City whiskey yet. That came later. But the three of us went down to MGPI, or at the time it was LVI, Warrensburg, distilling in Indiana. And we were looking to source barrels, and this is what we ended up with, which at the time was something that I didn't even know existed. But it's light whiskey, light corn whiskey. And this is one of the original samples that we got from back then you can see that it was distilled in 2007. We got this sample on June 26, 2013.
It's insane.
Which was more than a year before we even released our Kansas City whiskey. But this is the one that started it all. We went down there and started tasting those barrels and sampling the whiskeys that we had access to try and formulate our blend. This is the beginning of that. So I still had this at home, and I thought, why not? let's do it.
I like that it's actually addressed to Dave too.
It is, yeah.
It
says Dave Pickerell right there on the.
Yeah, so it was actually.
Label.
I mean, okay.
Also 140 proof. Is that enough? One more.
This is fine. This is perfect. It is kind of crazy to go back and smell this. Since now that like the blend that we use currently utilizes some light corn whiskey, but we also make it here. We don't actually utilize any we brought in anymore.
We've transitioned all to our own light whiskey
but
production.
like kind of going back and then thinking about that was that long ago, because now we've been doing this for, geez, it's coming up on, I would have, it's coming up on 9 years.
Yeah, we're 9 years in business and more than 8 years actually distilling.
Yeah.
So I do have a story about this, which I thought was kind of funny. When Andy and Dave and I went down and sampled this stuff and met with the owners of MGPI, and so we committed to buying like 100 barrels, right? Which is a huge deal to me. Like, the idea of buying 100 barrels of whiskey is just, at the time, was mind blowing, you know. So I went back down after we bought them, or we committed to buying them. They were still storing them at the Rick House there in Indiana, and I flew into Kentucky and to Louisville for some other event. Dave was there, and so Dave picked me up in his 1963 Cadillac. I think it was an Eldorado. Did you ever see it?
I never got. I should have taken advantage of it. He did say we could have gotten his car out of storage when I got to do a trip with him, and I was like, I'll just rent a car. And now looking back, I'm like, I should have gotten the car out of storage.
So he picks me up. This is sometime in like late 2013, after we bought those barrels, and it was just the two of us. He picks me up in his 63, might have been a 62 Cadillac Eldorado, big white boat of a car, and him in his cowboy hat and everything. And we're driving from Louisville to Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is like a 4-hour drive, right? And he's falling asleep while we are driving on the highway. He's literally nodding off. And if you know Dave, you know the guy could party. He was actually, for a while there, he was known as the 5th member of Metallica. No joke, look it up.
Yeah.
The guy could throw down. But he's passing out behind the wheel as we are driving to the distillery, and we're drifting off, and I'm reaching over from the passenger's side and like shaking him and grabbing the wheel and getting us back onto the highway. I'm like,
would you like me to drive, please?
Not kill us while we're on the way to go look at our barrels of whiskey.
And that's from that picture that you have, right?
Yeah. So that photo I have in a lot of my seminars of he and I standing in front of the racks with those barrels of this light corn whiskey.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some of the Dave stories. One of my favorite Dave stories is in the whole planning of all of this distillery and how we kind of did the second iteration of J. Rieger. This is in 2016. We were thinking about this and expanding, and so we got to do this pretty cool research trip. We got to go to Kentucky, and it was me and my 2 distillers at the time. It was Jay and Tommy, and we drove down to Louisville, picked up Dave, and we drove around for 3 days and just visited all sorts of, essentially did the Bourbon Trail, but I got to do it with Dave Pickerell, and go to places. And we went to Willett, and Dave he helped out Drew and his dad when they were putting everything together. And so there's like, yeah, just wander around, I'll catch up with you. So we just got to go wherever we wanted, and got to go check out things out. But then we also go to some big places. Even went to a distillery that was in the middle of construction, and I knew it was being built. And Dave's like, yeah, let's just go see.
I know which one this is.
And yes, Bardstown Bourbon Company. Yeah. And it was a construction site, and we show up, and Dave knew the super, and they gave us hard hats and gave us vests. And I hope that doesn't get the super in trouble, because he probably wasn't supposed to do that. But they let us look around. But so for us, it was a cool way to see. If you ever get a chance to go to Willett. It's beautiful. And then even in a different way, Bardstown is a really cool place. But get to see, because we weren't even settled on utilizing this building at that time. And so we didn't know, do we want to just build from the ground up, which is like Bardstown did, or do we want to do something in an older building, like kind of what Willett did, and kind of put it together? And I'm very, very glad we chose to do what we did. I think it's perfect. But getting a chance to kind of do some preliminary planning, kind of figure that all out. But that was just an incredible trip. And I think back now, and some of my favorite like memorabilia from that trip, I just have it's from my tour at Four Roses with Dave, and he gave me his glass because he's like, I don't need it. So I have that glass at my house. It's my favorite. What's my favorite glass to drink whiskey out of? And just because it's Dave's. And so having that experience, the amount of like whiskey nerds, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way because I'm pretty nerdy about stuff too, but like would have paid X amount of dollars. Like everybody would want to do that. Like I mean, we ran into people that recognized him and they were just like wouldn't stop asking him questions, and we're just trying to get back in the Nissan Versa that I rented to hit the road. Dave was a big guy, and it was pretty tough to get into that Nissan Versa. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But,
big dude indeed, big heart, big hat.
Yeah.
See my pen?
Oh, nice. Yeah, the hat. I feel like I need a more iconic hat if I wanted to be as cool as Dave. I just wear this baseball cap all the time.
Well, either way, I mean, he had a uniform. I mean, it was jeans and a long sleeve button-up kind of sort of work shirt with usually the sleeves rolled up, and then he had his iconic hat.
Yeah.
I mean, every single time over the years, spent any time with him, he was always wearing the same thing. And I can probably say the same about you now.
Something like this, yeah.
Boots and shorts.
Yeah. Well.
Let's see, what else? I mean, I think it's really, we've talked a lot about it, you know, our whiskey and our experience with Dave, but what I think is really amazing about him is that in his short time, the amount of impact and reach that he had on our industry. I mean, you know, left Maker's Mark, started Whistle Pig, you know, resurrected George Washington's whiskey of all things, started Hill Rock, and then consulted for, in some capacity, probably more than 50 of the small craft whiskey distilleries in the U.S.
Yeah, and even you look now, the more distilleries popping up, but it's kind of the impact that he had in just inspiring other people to think, you know what, we should start, even if he didn't have a hand in it, but just having that impact that he did, it's pretty cool to get to be on the list of people. When they talked about, I mean, it's a weird thing, but like after he died, just getting mentioned with some of the things that he was doing, and just like, and yeah, he was a partner at J. Rieger and Company, and I think how lucky we did get with that entire project. It's really cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Actually, I do have something else. I don't know if you've seen this.
Are you going to try to make me cry?
No.
Okay,
no,
good.
I don't want to make you cry. Maybe. There's like, he has a challenge coin. Master Distiller Dave Pickerell.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I feel like we're both getting like just in our heads thinking about Dave a lot. This is live.
Yep.
I know. When we won, so this year, San Francisco, when we found out that we won, this might make me emotional. Actually, it's going to do it. When we found out that we won, I still have his phone number, and I text it every once in a while. That was one. I was so happy that, like, I knew he would have been excited. He would have been so pumped about the entire project. So when we won the double gold for the bourbon, that was one that got me. And so I was like, I text a couple people that would respond, and then I always apologize at the start of the text to his old phone number because, like, I don't know who has this yet, but hey, I'm going to send this message, and I just. And I've done that with some pretty, like, every time we have something like big happen, I usually send it a text, and you know, I do miss the ability to have, because I imagine just having him around, like, he'd be so fun to have here. It's so fun to have him talk about whiskey. Is such a passionate individual, knew so much history, and I think that's where you're more of a history nerd than I am, and like would really get into that, but like. The combination of just an absolute scientist, like so smart, but then also a historian and just loved all of that. And so that entire combination, I miss having that aspect of him around so much because it was fun. I got a chance to do some presentations with him, and I might not say anything, but for me, I'm like I get to be there and just hear him talk about all these things. And
I gave a seminar with him on the history of American rectified whiskey. at Tales of the Cocktail, like in 2000, I don't know, 16, 17 maybe.
Yeah.
He was one of the panelists, right? And he was falling asleep, like during the very beginning, you know. But he was like, once you get him going, like the room was full, right? First off, the room was packed, every seat sold, standing room only.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as he gets going, man, like everybody just is engaged and just so like sucked into like hanging on every word that he's saying. You know?
He was,
and making them laugh too, like informing them, but also making them laugh.
Yeah, he was
great.
He was really, really good at that.
Anyway, I think we'll probably wrap it up, but we'll wrap it up with another toast to Dave. Happy birthday, Dave.
Yeah, happy birthday, Dave.
This has been Barely Enough, where, in the words of Mark Twain, too much of anything can be bad for you, but too much whiskey is barely enough. And we will see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.